Welcome back. Of course, this is Sporty Monday, and as promised, this is now the time for the quick fire. And we have the man who is under fire, if you want to say so, Mr. Francis Mutuku. He's the NOC Secretary General. And remember, there's a lot of hate regarding Team Kenya to the Paris Olympics. Does he have that list? He'll be telling us shortly. Welcome, sir, to the program.
Thank you very much. Good morning, everyone.
Asante sana, karibu. And of course, we are joined for the very first time, Mr. Beth Oduo. He is an author, he is a sports commentator, and he tells me he's not a historian, but a historiographer. Welcome, sir.
Thank you. Actually, historiographer.
Historiographer. Tell us more about that.
A historiographer is somebody who documents what history says and questions why the history. Yeah.
So questioning the why. Actually, you'll be questioning that shortly. But let's begin with you, Mr. Mutuku. And the elephant in the room is Team Kenya heading to Paris Olympics. Where are we?
We are at a very good place. Looking at now talking of history, the history of our preparations for major games, especially Olympics, I believe this time round we've done the best ever in terms of focusing on the athletes, in terms of providing the right environment, in terms of supporting, in terms of getting as many partners and stakeholders behind the team. And recently, we are getting Kenyans behind the team way before the first gold medal comes in.
Getting Kenyans behind the team, and that's the question everybody is asking. And there was a lot of hits on sports CS, former sports CS, immediate former sports CS, Namwamba, to make public the list of Kenyans traveling to Paris who are not athletes and who are not officials. And actually, he deflected it on you. He wrote a letter saying, make this list public. Where is that list?
We have the list. Maybe let me start by saying that as a country, we got stuck in Rio 2016 because a lot of things went wrong, despite the very good performance.
Actually, athletes were missing kits, some were lacking accommodation.
Yes, we got stuck at that place. But it's good to remind us that we've since moved on. In between, we were at Gold Coast, Commonwealth Games, Birmingham, Commonwealth Games, most importantly, Tokyo 2020 Olympics during the COVID period. And the question we normally ask is, what do people remember about Tokyo 2020? Not much, because there was no scandal. As we go towards Paris 2024, from where we stand as an Olympic Committee, the list is pretty straightforward. Athletes qualify on two levels, either by ranking or by continental championship. And therefore, the list of the athletes becomes automatic. By the 30th of June, the closure of entries, the closure of qualification, therefore, with the next 7 days gives us an opportunity to be able to confirm the names. As it is today, we have our CEO in Paris signing off the final entries for the athletes who will be participating, including the names and the events. Around that is what we call the primary team officials. Primary team officials are guided by the chef de mission, the CEO of the games, the team manager, the coaches, the physiotherapist, the support team. Those are the people who are normally around it. How do we choose? Very simple. Federations normally nominate through their own criteria of which names will be there. And then the National Olympic Committee confirms and enters those names. Beyond that is what we call additional team officials. Additional team officials are people in the administration aspect. People look at the entries, people look at the accreditation, transport.
And probably that's where the conundrum is. Who are these people and how many are they so far?
Not that part. That part, again, is normally pretty straightforward because their duties are normally exactly as stipulated within the International Olympic Committee system.
So for Paris, how many are you taking for this role?
We'll be able to give that number. I'll be able to explain why we cannot release because we must present it to the Preparatory and Management Committee, which is sitting this week to receive those names and then release to the public. So, the National Olympic Committee...
Today, just hold on, today is the 15th day, if I'm not wrong, of July. Paris begins 26th of July.
11 days.
That's 11 days from now. As you're aware, I believe you're aware there are Kenyans who've actually gone to court to petition to have this list made public. So with 11 days to go, when should we expect to see this list?
Before the end of this week. First, let me just say from the National Olympic Committee, we are very happy that people have requested, because over time there's been a lot of demand by people from different sectors wanting to go to the Olympics. Now, the bit, and I was explaining so that Kenyans can be able to understand where the entry becomes a bit confusing. After we get the additional team officials, the other people are normally there are the Olympic family. Olympic family is all IOC members, President of the National Olympic Committee, the Secretary General. Again, that is well stipulated. Then for government, and I believe that's where a lot of interest is, the International Olympic Committee provides for only 4 positions: head of state, head of government, minister of sport, and the ambassador of sports. That is the people who are recognized within the accreditation system. Now, what happens, and what has happened before, is that after now that particular well-stipulated area is filled, then there's what is called expanded delegation, where we get different people of members of parliament, people from the Senate, other ministers come in. What I think the pressure from the public will help us this time round is to ward off that particular demand for this particular position. I would like to believe, because normally we are not the final call on that particular aspect, I would like to believe this time round, those who choose to do it will not choose to go under the taxpayers' account.
Absolutely. And that's why there's a lot of debate.
They'll be able to pay. And we'd like to thank Kenyans because they have assisted our work in terms of this process. We are happy that these calls, this focus has come before Olympics. It would have been worse if we were doing the audit after all this has happened. I would like to very express our gratitude to Kenyans for keeping a watch, because they made our work easier. The list we give is the list which will be stipulated according to the Olympic Committee, but we have to go through the process of presenting it through the PMC, Preparatory Management Committee, which now will be headed by the Principal Secretary. And I believe once we do it, he'll be able to release the entire list, including if there are any additional numbers to the ones which we've explained.
So you're saying before the week ends, we're going to have that list?
Correct.
Mr. Duo, maybe now come in with your history. Probably take us Kenya's performance at Olympics. You saw how we performed in Tokyo 2020, which was mainly a drop from what we had in Rio. Actually, in Rio, we had 13 medals cumulatively. Now, looking at the circumstances, and you've heard the SG explain, from where you sit, how do you see Team Kenya performing in Paris Olympics?
Yeah, I think the elephant in the room is preparations. And one of our weaknesses as a country has always been how much do we prepare, and how diversified do we want our teams to be? Because traditionally we've relied on athletics. You find that some of the games, some of the sports that used to give us medals have totally been ignored. For example, if you take one of the most successful Olympics we've had in 1988, Seoul in South Korea, we had a gold medal in boxing, and we had medals in other sports. We used to have medals in other sports, unlike athletics only. But now that we rely mostly on athletics, you find that we lose the opportunity of developing other games and also giving ourselves the potential to get more medals in future. Had we prepared ourselves from 1988 to now, we would now have gone somewhere with even games like rugby that have been introduced in the Olympics. So that is where my problem is. For us, relying on one particular sport, that is athletics, for our medals, I think is risky, and it shows that we really are not visionary in the way we handle our Olympic participation.
And how do you foresee us performing? Because you've talked of Seoul. I think we're talking of the late boxer, actually Wangila, who won as a gold. But actually, since then up to now, we've not won a gold in Olympics as far as boxing is concerned. Actually, these Olympics, we're not going to have any pugilist. Where do you think the rain started beating us in as far as boxing is concerned?
The rain started beating us because of the general malaise that we have in our country, where sports has really been politicized. Now the rot starts from the top. And we have the opportunity of correcting this, because if you look at the old constitution, the head of state had to pick the minister of sports from the sitting MPs. But with the new constitution, the head of state can pick the minister of sport from anywhere, from technocrats and the rest.
Right.
Now, we need a technocrat who understands a broad range of disciplines and who knows that managing the Olympic team is like managing a corporation, who can start planning. We are in 2024. What happens in 2028? What happens in 2032? So that we lay down strategies for 2032. We start preparing the youth, the age group tournaments. We start preparing them now so that we know by 2028, somebody who is 14 will be 18, and this is how we will have developed that particular participant. But if we don't do that, we're going to have our usual knee-jerk reaction to what is happening. We're going to have athletes going there. Some are experiencing burnout, and yet we take them and we assume they're going to give us the traditional medals we have always had. And that is why we are now becoming boogie teams for countries like Ethiopia and even Uganda next door. So let us have somebody who will manage the team the way you'd manage a corporation and have a vision.
Yeah. Actually, in steeplechase, 3,000 meters, which we really dominated, that's no longer the case. And you've talked of having a technocrat with the proper understanding of sports. You had the discussion we had before this interview, and opinion is divided on Namwamba. From where you sit, do you think he's done well? Is he somebody you'd want to see back, or would you want to see change in the ministry?
I would like to see a total change in especially how the head of sports is appointed. It should not be a politician, and it should not be anybody who has tested politics, because we know our politicians. They are not honest, they are not truthful, and they cannot plan anything. And their stay there as politicians depends on a lot of political goodwill. And that is why we are failing. At the moment, we have opportunities to get our leaders from the corporate world. We have so many former players who have played rugby, have played football, are educated enough, and can manage, have managed corporations, and can manage the Ministry of Sports. They don't have to be politicians. Whom would you suggest? You're giving many names. Whom do you think is equal to the task? I'll give an example, although he's rather elderly. Take somebody like Dennis Awori. Dennis Awori played rugby for Kenya. And he's been a CEO of big organizations. He's chaired big corporate organizations. That is somebody who understands sports very, very well. And in any case, he's proven himself technically that he can manage sports. And he has the goodwill of sports people. Let's look at a more youthful person. Take Humphrey Kayange, for example. Sorry, I'm using rugby as an example. This is somebody who is educated. This is somebody who understands how the corporate world works, how sponsors should be approached. Yes. Yeah. Now, these are some of the people who should be given that ministry. Age is on his side, and he understands rugby. He knows how painful it is if you don't get your allowances. He knows how painful it is if you carry joyriders to a place as opposed to even carrying legends to Paris. I'm very sure as our team is going to Paris, I don't know, Mutuku is here, he can tell us whether we have some legends we have put in the plane to go and see, to go and participate, to go and help us motivate the other players while there. Absolutely. Mutuku, as you answer that, I want to pick your thought also on Sports CS Namwamba. I know you worked closely with him as by virtue of your position at NOC, but do you think he's somebody who should come back and steady the ship, or we get fresh blood?
First, I think it's just to comment that CS gave the National Olympic Committee a lot of room. One of the problems we've had as a National Olympic Committee is too much government in sports, but we're able to get some room. And allow me to speak slightly about the CS or the position. Just like everything else in Kenya, every time we make it around an individual, we fail. Because even listening to the different Kenyans who are giving their views and expectations of who the CS should be, you could tell it's a very wide view. The CS would need to be too many things to too many people. And my feeling would be we move away from the person to more of the system. For example, we should put a sports policy in place. A lot of people, when they talk of government, when they talk of the CS, they almost want a CS who is running a federation. Like a lot of people love football, they want several football aspects sorted. And they imagine the CS can be able to do that, which is a pretty difficult thing. The sports policy would be able to help us sit back as a country and understand where we are and where we need to go. So that when we talk of boxing, not going to the Olympics and not doing well, then somebody will be able to open up Kenya and ask, in boxing, there is no single boxing ring in this country.
Absolutely. And talking of policy, sorry to cut you short, we have enough laws. There's a lot of legislative framework already in place. We talk of Sports Act 2013. You work with the federations. Actually, you're an umbrella body because all federations converge into NOC. But look at it this way. None of these federations, Mutuku, is Sports Act compliant. We are talking about elections. We are talking of talent development. All these are lacking, Mutuku. More than a decade since this law came into place.
Correct. That's very true. However, somebody needs to look at the reading of the Sports Act. And I'll give you a very simple, practical example of what the Sports Act provides. As three of us are seated here, we can be able to put up documents together and form a branch of any federation, any. No one will check whether that sport is on the ground, whether that sport, there is any development around it, or whether there is any infrastructure around that particular sport. As long as we can present our papers, three of us, to the registrar, we'll be registered as a sports body. That's why we normally say, as sports practitioners, that the law should be facilitative. That means it should look at the people who are doing sports. We all know the kind of people who do grassroots sports. If you go and ask them for certain documents, higher education slot balls document, credit reference bureau, amount of 10,000, those people do not have money, but they are running the sport and they love the sport. Second thing is we need to know that sports is of an international nature, and therefore it is guided by the international rules. So if you find our sports is in conflict, and this is normally the example of football, if you find the international federations which provide for how the sport should run, and then the Sports Act goes contrary to that, then that becomes a problem. However, what is most important for us, it's infrastructure. We talk of steeplechase, and we talk of ourselves being a powerhouse in steeplechase. But how many steeplechase academies do we have in Kenya? How many steeplechase facilities do we have to be able to train our athletes?
Yeah, actually it cut across all sports, actually. Football, rugby,
exactly.
You mentioned it. But real quick, I want you to talk about Paris. And the first question is, why the choice of Miramas and how much have we paid for that camp?
Miramas is on free basis. We've been given that facility, and I would like to say it's
for free.
For free.
For what benefit? How does the owner benefit?
Greatly, because every city in Paris would like to host our top athletes. One of the things which people have not been able to see is the value of our sports people. It is courtesy of the value of sports people that there were several cities offering to host Team Kenya, while some other countries are going to look for places to pay. This was negotiated almost 7 years ago. Miramas has been wanting to have a joint program with Kenya because one of the Kenyan athletes is based there and has worked very, very closely to the county with the municipality. The mayor loves the city, loves Kenya very much. He gave us an opportunity to be able to train athletes. For the records, even before this particular camp went, we were able to train our basketball 3x3 before they went for the Olympic Championship. We were able to take our rugby team before they went to Madrid for their championship. And now we have a team with good facilities, free of charge, accommodation, free of charge, local or transportation, free of charge. What we give back to the city, we give them good association with our top athletes.
So how much are we spending probably on Team Kenya? If it's free, how much are we spending on Team Kenya during this duration?
At Miramas, our cost is just flying them to Miramas. Everything else is provided free of charge.
No underhand deal?
None at all.
Do you buy that?
I don't buy until until we'll see the report from the Auditor General. Yeah, that's when we can know how much was spent on whether there was money invoiced. Yeah, I think that's when we can do that. But there's something I would like to add. I don't know whether you can give me a minute. why I was talking about politicians is the way they patronize our sports. You'll be surprised that one of the most successful leagues in the world is the EPL. And we rarely know who the Minister for Sports is.
Yeah, sure,
and
I agree.
Does not even give statements. But in Kenya, you find that even a local village tournament, the patron is a politician, or a politician will want to have a say in this and that. All our clubs, their patrons are politicians, whether within their constitution or not. So, so political interference is one of our biggest problems, and that's why I'm insisting the Minister for Sports should not be a politician.
Yeah. In the interest of time going forward, what would you want to see in sports management and your expectation in Paris? Real quick, in a minute, maybe.
I don't expect much in Paris. Sorry, I might be an agent of doom, but I don't expect much because our preparation was not that good, and we are only relying on athletics and nothing else. So it's a wishy-washy expectation. I wouldn't say that I'm very optimistic about having a successful Olympics.
Okay. Yeah. Mutuku would have loved to go on and on, but time is up. Maybe just in a minute, answer the question. 60 years after independence, we are still just relying on the track to win medals. We've tried with the field events, but we've failed horribly, apart from Julius Yego. Why is that the case?
Infrastructure, funding, and putting the right infrastructure in place. Infrastructure, both physical and in terms of a sports policy. I still insist we do not have a sports policy. And the sports policy will guide out of the limited resources where we should put priority. If you look at it, we load too much funding towards the end. A lot of funding should come at the front. We've said as an Olympic Committee, even if we are given 10 billion, 1 month to the Olympics, we are not able to achieve. But if that 10 billion was to be given now for 2032 Brisbane Olympics, that would make a difference. In terms of moving forward, I think one of the things is that, and we normally tell people, especially those of us who are the National Olympic Committee, is to watch what we are doing than what we are saying. There's a lot of suspicion in a lot of activities because of the historical formations, but we like to give a lot of confidence that for Paris 2024, to the extent that we are able to control, manage, everything will be above board.
How many medals should we expect?
I'm not able to give medals, but we've always said performance is a reflection of preparation. We believe our athletics team is looking good. We believe our rugby team is looking good. Every other team will be happy if they are competitive.
Last time we had 10 in Tokyo, if I'm not wrong. Rio, we had 13, a drop of 3. Could it be double figure?
The best performance of Olympics in Kenya has been Beijing and Rio, where we had 6 gold medals. Our prayer would be that we can either match that or improve.
President Ruto, your message to him as he builds his cabinet in a minute.
He should not appoint a politician or anybody who has tested or sniffed politics as minister, as CS for sports.
On Stadia, we are doing badly, playing our matches out of the country.
It reflects in the way we are performing, because there's no Stadia in Kenya at the moment, none completely, and you cannot expect us to reap if we don't prepare well and we don't have venues. Look at what Tanzania is doing. They're building a stadium in Arusha, and they're using JKIA to market Arusha.
Absolutely.
You see.
That is Bethwel Odu, of course, joining us here. He's an author and also a sports commentator. All matters sport history in Kenya, he has it at his fingertips. Also, Francis Mutuku making time to join us. Mutuku is the Secretary General of the National Olympics Committee of Kenya. He's at the center of preparing Team Kenya for Paris Olympics. Of course, we'll keep our eyes trained on him and his colleagues as they prepare to go to Paris for the Olympics Games. They have joined us here on a quick fire segment. Now let's shift gears a little bit to the regional school games.